A millionaire arrives home and freezes upon seeing his housekeeper crying, kneeling beside the Ferrari, with his son in her arms. But when he discovers the reason they are there, his world simply falls apart. The silence in Elias Vance's mansion wasn't merely the absence of sound. It was a living entity, heavy and constant, a chilling reminder of loss and a mystery that defied his comprehension. A tech mogul accustomed to deciphering complex algorithms and building successful companies as easily as breathing, he found himself powerless before the most intimate enigma of his life. His 2-year-old triplets, Aurora, Skies, and Chloe, were the picture of health. With curious eyes and golden hair that shone like morning sunbeams, but their voices had never once broken the veil of silence. No babyish babble, no attempts at daddy or mommy. The absence of their speech was a silent scream echoing in the empty halls of his soul. Elias had mobilized all his capital and influence. Renowned specialists from every corner of the globe had come and gone, speech therapists, child psychologists, neurologists. They all pored over the girl's case. But the tests revealed no physical anomalies, and theories multiplied. It could be an emotional block, some suggested, perhaps due to the mother's absence. The mention of the girl's mother, his beloved Sophia, brought a stab of pain that never subsided. Sophia, with her vibrant spirit and contagious smile, had been the light of his life, taken by a cruel illness months before. Leaving a vacuum, Elias tried to fill with relentless work. His businesses, once a field of stimulating challenges, had become an escape, a refuge from the loneliness the house flaunted. He spent long hours in his office, immersed in investment spreadsheets and market strategies, monitoring the cash flow of his various companies. Meanwhile, the mansion, with its lavish gardens and sparkling pools, was a stage for the constant revolving door of nannies and staff, none of them managing to form a genuine bond with the girls. The triplets, still trapped in their world of silence, looked right through them, disconnected, like little living statues. Guilt gnawed at Elias, but he didn't know how to break this vicious cycle of pain and isolation. He offered expensive gifts, state-of-the-art toys, all to no avail. The money he had accumulated, his vast net worth, seemed insignificant in the face of a problem that all the gold in the world couldn't solve. It was then that a long-time employee, Arthur, a loyal gardener who had witnessed the family's rise and sorrows, insisted that Elias hire a new house cleaner. "She's different, Mr. Vance," Arthur said, with the wisdom of his years. "There's a calm in her eyes you don't see much anymore." Elias, exhausted from so many failed attempts, agreed, more out of deference to Arthur than any real hope. And so, a discreet young woman with attentive eyes and a serenity that seemed at odds with her youth entered the life of the mansion. Her name was Anna. She promised no miracles, she just needed the job. Her resume was simple, with nothing to indicate a special skill with children, but there was something in her posture, a quietude that intrigued Elias. On Anna's first day, while cleaning the vast library filled with ancient and modern tomes Elias rarely read, she felt a wave of fatigue that made her sit for a few minutes on the Persian rug. She had barely settled when she noticed 3 pairs of curious eyes watching her. The triplets, like curious little sprites, had approached silently. Anna smiled, a genuine and gentle smile, extending her hand without a word. Tucked under an old sofa, she had found a small, dusty music box. It was a simple object, carved from wood, with a ballerina who spun delicately to a soft melody. Anna wound the mechanism, and the short refrain, almost a melodic lament, filled the once silent room. The children, mesmerized, smiled. Not a polite smile, but one that reached their eyes. One of them, Sky, reached out her tiny hand and touched Anna's finger. The young house cleaner, lost in the delicacy of the moment, didn't realize the magnitude of that gesture. To her, it was just a sweet interaction with three lonely children, but the security cameras, installed discreetly in every room of the mansion, a habit of Elias's, born from his mindset of protecting assets and investments, recorded every second of that scene. They captured the smiles, the touch, and the melody that seemed to dissolve the ice encasing the little girls. That night, Elias, reviewing the footage as part of his customary security protocol, saw his daughters smiling as they never had before. It was the first impact, a sliver of light in his darkness, but nothing could have prepared him for what he would see the next day. Something that would forever change the course of their lives and shake the foundations of his carefully constructed world. What would his daughters say when Anna was present? And, more importantly, why only with her? This mystery was about to be unraveled in a way Elias could never have imagined. The next day, driven by a curiosity bordering on obsession and a hope he barely dared to entertain, Elias decided to come home from work early. He had spent a sleepless night replaying the scene of the triplets with Anna, every smile, every touch, like a newfound treasure. His investor's heart, accustomed to analyzing risk and predicting trends, couldn't process the emotion those images stirred. There was something inexplicable, something his money and fortune couldn't buy or replicate. He shut his laptop, leaving millions in potential stock market gains on the table, and drove home with uncharacteristic speed, propelled by an invisible force. Upon entering the mansion, the usual silence seemed even denser, almost palpable. He left his briefcase in the hall and walked stealthily toward the living room, from where a muffled sound different from the usual was coming. It wasn't crying, nor the murmuring of the nannies he was so used to seeing come and go. It was something softer, more joyful. He stopped at the door, hesitant, and peeked through the crack. The scene unfolding before his eyes made him freeze. Anna was sitting on the floor, with the three girls around her. Aurora was gesturing with her little hands. Sky was pointing at a picture book Anna held. And Chloe, her eyes shining, was laughing. And the sound he heard, it was the voices of his daughters, not babbling, not single syllables, but sentences. "Mommy, look at the kitty," said Aurora, with a clarity that pierced Elias's heart like an arrow. More," Sky pleaded, clapping her hands, and Chloe, pointing to the page, exclaimed, "That's so neat!" They were talking. His daughters, whom he and every expert had considered nonverbal, were communicating, with gestures, with enthusiasm, with the house cleaner. The air seemed to thin in Elias's lungs. His legs gave way, and he fell to his knees on the cold hallway floor, his hands covering his mouth to stifle a sob that threatened to escape. Tears, which he thought he had exhausted with Sophia's loss, streamed uncontrollably down his face. It was a miracle his vast net worth, his assets, and all his investments had failed to purchase. It was a gift from such an unexpected source. He felt an overwhelming mix of pure joy and a pang of jealousy, of exclusion. Why with Anna? Why not with him? In the days that followed, Elias tried to replicate the experience. He watched Anna carefully, memorizing her every gesture, every intonation. He played with the girls, offered them the same toys, including the old music box Anna had found. He sang the same soft melodies he had seen Anna hum, but nothing. As soon as Anna left the room, the silence returned. The girls retreated, their eyes losing their sparkle, their voices falling silent. They looked at him, but they didn't see him in the same way. It was as if his presence wasn't the catalyst. The contrast was brutal, and Elias's frustration grew with each failed attempt. The connection between Anna and the triplets was undeniable, almost palpable. The girls would run to her as soon as they saw her, chattering, laughing, their small faces lit up. Elias felt like a stranger in his own home, a mere observer of a bond he desperately wished he had. He began to feel torn between the genuine joy of seeing his daughters finally communicating and the pain of being excluded from this miracle. The emotional capital Anna invested in the girls seemed to yield far greater dividends than any financial investment he had ever made. Determined to understand, he began to observe Anna more closely, not just through the security cameras, but in person. He made small talk with her at first, then ventured to ask about her way with children, about her own childhood. With each conversation, each revealed detail, a new piece of the puzzle fell into place. He discovered that Anna had lost a daughter at birth a few years prior. Her eyes, which he had once seen as merely serene, now revealed a profound sadness, a vast emptiness. "It's like I have so much love left over, but no one to give it to," she confessed one day, her eyes welling up, unaware of how deeply those words resonated in Elias's heart. This revelation added a layer of complexity to the relationship. It was altruism, it was need, it was pure love. And Elias, the man of quick solutions, realized this solution wouldn't be found in a financial report or a market analysis. It resided in something much deeper and more human. He knew the growing bond between Anna and his daughters was special, but he couldn't imagine that this new dynamic would be the catalyst for a silent war within his own home. A war led by someone he considered family, and that was about to test the limits of his trust and his new, fragile piece of hope. What would happen when Anna's presence began to shake the established structures of power and control? And how would Elias, the man who always controlled everything, react to this invisible threat? The mansion's head housekeeper, Mrs. Gable, was a woman with an austere face and a sharp gaze, her grey hair impeccably styled in a bun. She had served the Vance family for over 20 years, since the time of Elias's parents, and considered herself the custodian of the house and all its traditions. Her loyalty was unquestionable, her work impeccable, and Elias trusted her implicitly. Mrs. Gable had always held near absolute control over the household routine. From the dinner menu to the selection of the girls' clothes, and her power, though not monetary like Elias's portfolio, was undeniable within that private universe. She was the silent guardian of Elias's domestic empire. However, Anna's arrival and, more importantly, the impact she had on the triplets shook the foundations Mrs. Gable had so carefully built. The housekeeper watched, with a growing pang of resentment, how the girls ran to Anna, ignoring the nannies and even herself. The children's laughter, once so rare, now filled the rooms whenever Anna was near. It was a new and enchanting melody, but to Mrs. Gable, it sounded like a threat. This mere house cleaner, as she mentally referred to her, seemed to be gaining far too much importance, a kind of social capital the housekeeper believed was exclusively hers. Mrs. Gable's prestige, built over decades of faithful service, seemed to diminish with each day Anna became more indispensable. Mrs. Gable's suspicion began to manifest in small actions. Objects Anna had cleaned and set down would go missing, smudges would appear in freshly cleaned areas, and gradually she began to plant seeds of doubt in Elias's mind. "She is very young, Mr. Vance, and so quiet. You can't trust people who don't show you what they're thinking," she commented one day while serving his breakfast. On another occasion, with the tone of someone privy to deep secrets, she insinuated, "Children are very sensitive, sir. Getting attached to someone who could leave at any moment, it's not good for them. Is it possible she's getting close to the girls for other reasons? Looking for an easier life, perhaps? A way to move up?" Mrs. Gable's words, subtle and venomous, found fertile ground in Elias's mind. Despite all his business acumen and success, he was a billionaire who made financial investments as easily as he breathed. Life experience had made him cynical. He had been deceived before by people he trusted, both personally and professionally. Memories of business deals gone wrong and friendships that proved false resurfaced. His vast cash flow and business profitability had shielded him from many blows, but in the realm of emotions, he felt vulnerable. He knew that money and fortune attracted all sorts of interest, and Anna's story suddenly seemed to have a new angle in his mind. Elias hesitated. He saw his daughter's joy with Anna, felt the hope she brought, but the seeds of doubt planted by Mrs. Gable began to sprout. He needed proof. He had to test Anna's sincerity. After all, as a businessman, he was used to conducting audits, to verifying the truth of all information. And this was the most important test of his life. He summoned Anna to his office, a space of minimalist and imposing design, where market-moving decisions were made. "Anna," Elias began, his voice trying to sound neutral but betraying a nervousness he couldn't hide. "I've observed how attached the girls are to you, and I'm grateful. But they need to get used to other figures as well. I need you to stay away for a week, so they can adapt." Anna looked at him, her clear eyes not hiding her surprise and pain. She knew what this meant. The weight of his words was palpable. The humiliation of being tested, of having her love questioned, was evident on her face, but she offered no word of protest. She simply nodded, heartbroken, and accepted his decision. She was an employee, and he was the boss. "Yes, Mr. Vance, as you wish." Elias felt a tightening in his chest as he saw the sadness in her eyes. But his decision was made, and he believed it was for the good of his daughters. He was certain the girls would, in time, adjust, that if he surrounded them with love and attention, the silence wouldn't return. He underestimated, however, the depth of the bond Anna had created and the impact her absence would have. In the days that followed, the mansion plunged back into a silence even heavier than before. And what Elias was about to witness would make him question not only his decisions, but the very nature of love and human connection. What would he discover about his daughters and himself without Anna's presence? And how would his impulsive decision affect the fate of everyone in that house, especially the little ones he loved so dearly? The return of the silence was only the beginning of a much greater ordeal. The days following Anna's departure were torment for Elias. The mansion, once filled with the soft melody of the triplets, voices when Anna was present, reverted to an echo of silence and sadness. The girls, who had blossomed under Anna's gentle care, retreated back into themselves. They not only stopped talking, but rejected any attempt at connection. Their nannies, the few who remained, tried in vain to capture their attention with colorful toys and stories. But the triplets' eyes were vacant, their smiles gone, replaced by a worrying apathy. Aurora, the most sensitive, spent hours sitting by the window, gazing at the garden with a melancholic look. Sky, once the most curious and active, refused to eat, pushing food away with a small shake of her head. And Chloe, the most expressive, would cry at night, a silent, tearless cry that broke Elias's heart. It was a mute lament that resonated throughout the house, making the nights long and agonizing for their father. The luxury of the mansion, the comfort provided by the vast capital and assets Elias owned, seemed to mock him, powerless to alleviate his daughters' pain. His investment in a new team of caregivers, the reorganization of schedules, all felt mechanical, soulless. Elias tried everything. He played with them, read books, sang lullabies, the same gestures he had seen Anna make. But his attempts were futile. The girls looked at him with a sadness he couldn't decipher, as if they were waiting for someone who never came. He realized his mistake, a colossal error that weighed on his conscience like a mountain. The test he had demanded of Anna, driven by planted doubts and old scars, had become a trial for his daughters, and they were suffering the consequences. His portfolio, which he had proudly built over the years with shrewd stock picks and investments, couldn't buy his daughters' happiness or their speech. Desperate, he tried to call her back. He left messages on Anna's phone, sent a driver with a letter and a generous check, but Anna refused. The response, relayed through the gardener Arthur, who had become a communication bridge, was a blow to Elias. She said, "Mr. Vance, that if you still need proof of her love for the children, then you still don't understand anything at all." Those words, laden with dignity and hurt, echoed in Elias's mind. She wasn't interested in money, in fortune, in social climbing. She was interested in the children, and Elias, in his arrogance and suspicion, had broken something precious. Time was running out. The girls were getting worse by the day. Their apathy was an alarm bell Elias could not ignore. In his desperation, he reached out to a figure he had avoided for months, the girls' maternal grandmother, Eleanor Croft. A stern woman with piercing blue eyes and an impeccable posture. She had never approved of Elias's lifestyle and had always criticized his decisions. The relationship between them was cold and formal, marked by a mutual distrust since Sophia's death. Eleanor was a woman of unwavering principles, with a work ethic and a sense of justice that had made her a respected figure in her social circle, and whom Elias now desperately sought. Elias's call to Eleanor was difficult, laden with wounded pride and a veiled plea. He explained the girl's situation, the return of the silence, Anna's refusal to come back. Eleanor, hearing the choked voice of her son-in-law, felt a chill. Her granddaughter's health was her highest priority. She agreed to come to the mansion. Upon her arrival, her blue eyes, usually so controlled, widened at the sight of the girls. They were pale, silent children who looked like ghosts in their own home. The contrast with the joyful photos Elias had of Sophia and the girls in happier times was painful. Eleanor's visit to the mansion was a turning point. She saw the emotional neglect, unintentional but present, that Elias had allowed. The sadness in her eyes was a silent accusation. However, she did not confront him directly. Instead, she made a drastic decision, driven by her love for her granddaughters and the belief that Elias was unable to provide the emotional care they needed. Eleanor, with her unshakable determination, decided to file a lawsuit to gain custody of her granddaughters. She alleged emotional neglect, the lack of connection, the regression into silence. The words from Eleanor's lawyer echoing the accusation were like blows to Elias's chest. Now, Elias was racing against time, not just for the well-being of his daughters, but to keep them in his home. He needed to prove he was a capable father, that he could care for them, but he also knew, deep down, that he couldn't do it alone. He needed help, something more than all his capital, his funds, and his treasures could offer. He reinforced the team of caregivers, hired more specialists, reorganized the children's routine with military precision, but it all seemed in vain. The girls remained apathetic, distant, trapped in their private world of silence. The fight against the clock and against Eleanor was just beginning. He wondered if there was any way to reverse the damage he had caused, any light at the end of this tunnel of despair. And what would happen if he couldn't convince Anna to return, or if Eleanor won custody? The weight of these questions was crushing, and the fate of his family hung by a thread. The tension in Elias Vance's mansion was palpable, as thick as the morning fog that sometimes blanketed the vast gardens. Eleanor Croft's presence, though temporary, was a constant reminder of the battle ahead. Her watchful eyes and erect posture scrutinized every detail, every gesture, searching for evidence to support her lawsuit. Elias felt as if he were under a microscope, every move judged, every word weighed. The man who commanded tech empires and moved colossal sums in dividends and interest now felt powerless in his own home. His power, his wealth, his capital, all seemed useless against the quiet determination of his mother-in-law. The girls, oblivious to the war being waged over them, remained in their state of apathy. Their silence was a painful echo for Elias, a sad melody that resonated in his ears. He watched them from a distance, his heart aching. He tried, "Once more, to connect. He took them for rides in his luxury cars, showed them the latest gadgets he thought might excite them, but the expensive toys remained untouched, the bright screens ignored. It was as if an invisible veil separated them from the outside world, and Elias felt unable to break through it. The nannies and caregiving team, now more numerous and highly trained, followed Elias's instructions to the letter, but the energy they exuded was one of concern and a certain helplessness. The housekeeper, Mrs. Gable, observed the situation with disguised satisfaction. Her influence over Elias had been restored, and she felt vindicated in her suspicions about Anna. She would whisper to other staff members, reinforcing the narrative that Anna was an opportunist, someone merely seeking to climb the social ladder through the children. "You see, it's no surprise she didn't come back," she would say with an air of superiority. "People like that only show up when it's convenient." Elias, in his own turmoil, overheard these comments, and the doubts he had tried to push away crept back into his mind, albeit less intensely. However, the universe always finds a way to weave its own designs, often through the most unexpected connections. News of the triplets' condition had spread through the mansion's staff network, reaching the ears of a friend of Anna's, who worked occasionally as part of the catering staff for the Vance family. This friend, worried about the children's suffering and knowing Anna's genuine love for them, called her, describing the alarming situation. She told her about the girls' refusal to eat, about Chloe's silent crying, and worst of all, about one of them, Sky, fainting from dehydration. The news hit Anna like a lightning bolt. Fear for the girls swept away any resentment she might still harbor toward Elias. The image of tiny, fragile Sky, passed out, was too much for her heart, already scarred by loss. She didn't think about money, or pride, or humiliation. She thought only of the children. In that instant, she knew she had to go back, not for Elias's summons, nor for a higher salary, but for an unconditional love she felt for the little souls she had helped to blossom. Without warning, Anna appeared at the mansion. Her steps were quiet as she entered through the kitchen door, not knowing what awaited her or how she would be received. She carried only determination and love. The scent of cleaning products, which once defined her in that place, now seemed insignificant in the face of her urgent mission. As she crossed the hall leading to the living room, Anna stopped. The scene unfolding was once again picture perfect, but this time tinged with pain. Elias was sitting on the floor with the girls, trying to build a tower of blocks, but the triplets' eyes were fixed on nothing. Eleanor watched everything from a velvet armchair, her expression a mixture of sadness and resolve. Then they saw her. As if by a spell, Aurora, Sky, and Chloe looked up. A flash of recognition and joy crossed their pale faces. Their tiny bodies, once listless, sprang to life. They scrambled away from their father and, in unison, ran to Anna. With their little arms outstretched, they clung to her legs, and in that moment, with the voices that had been such a brief and precious gift, they cried out, "Mommy, Mommy!" The word, laden with affection and urgency, filled the silence of the room. It was a cry of love, a profound recognition that transcended logic and everyone's expectations. It was the voice of truth. Elias, who had his hands extended toward the girls, froze. The word "mommy" echoed in his chest, a mix of overwhelming relief and a pang of something he couldn't name. He saw the scene, the girls nestled against Anna, their once sad faces now illuminated, and then his eyes met Eleanor's. The grandmother, who had come in person for the court evaluation process, witnessed everything. The impact was devastating for her. Her eyes, once so critical, filled with tears. She saw not a house cleaner, not an opportunist, but a woman who emanated a love her granddaughters recognized, a love that spoke louder than any legal argument or social status. For the first time, Eleanor saw that these children didn't need a perfect structure, a portfolio, or all the assets in the world. They needed love. And that love was right there before her eyes, coming from where she least expected it. The scene was a revelation, a turning point that promised to change not only the course of the lawsuit, but the future of everyone involved. What would the grandmother do now? And how would Elias handle the complexity of his emotions, seeing his daughters call another woman Mommy? The silence that followed the triplets' cry was different from all the others. It was not the silence of absence nor of sorrow, but a silence heavy with awe, with revelation. The word Mommy, spoken in unison, resonated in the hearts of Elias and Eleanor, each in their own way. For Elias, it was the sweetest and most painful sound he had ever heard. His daughters were speaking. They were doing it again. But the word was directed at someone else. An overwhelming wave of relief washed over him, followed by a pang of jealousy and confusion. He, the businessman with an immense net worth and an enviable fortune, felt like a spectator in the most important scene of his life. His investment funds, his assets, none of it could compare to the love he saw radiating from Anna to his daughters, and from them to her. Eleanor, for her part, was paralyzed. Her eyes, which had witnessed so much pain and disappointment, were now fixed on Anna, who was kneeling, embracing the three girls with an undeniable tenderness. The scene shattered all her certainties, all her criticisms. She had come to fight for her granddaughters, convinced that Elias, in his reclusion and devotion to work, was emotionally neglecting them. The housekeeper, Mrs. Gable, with her shrewd gaze, also watched, but the scene made her swallow her insinuations. There was no self-interest there, only love. That love was so pure and evident that Eleanor felt the walls of her rigidity crumble. For the first time in a long time, Eleanor allowed herself to see beyond social status, beyond expectations. She saw a young woman, her soul marked by loss, offering these children what they needed most, a mother's love. The impact was devastating. The grandmother, known for her righteousness and for never backing down from a decision, felt the weight of her legal action evaporate. These children didn't need a perfect structure, an impeccable home, or all the money and security that Elias's wealth could offer. They needed a heart that listened to them, a hug that calmed them, a voice that encouraged them. And that love was right there, before her eyes, coming from where she least expected it. Slowly, Eleanor rose from her armchair. Her steps were hesitant, but her gaze, as it met Elias's, was different. There was a softness, an understanding he had never seen before. She approached Anna and the girls, who now watched her with childhood innocence. Anna, still emotional and surprised by the children's reaction, also stood up, holding a girl in each arm, with Chloe nestled against her legs. "Anna," Eleanor began, her voice thick with emotion. I didn't know." She paused, taking a deep breath. "I see now. The love you have for them is real." In a rare gesture of humility, Eleanor backed down. She dropped the custody suit. The words left her lips with a sincerity that surprised everyone, including herself. "These girls, they need you. I was wrong. I apologize." Eleanor's apology, from a woman who rarely admitted fault, was a tremor in the mansion's structure, a recognition of the strength of the bond she had tried to break. Elias felt immense relief. The silent war that threatened to tear his family apart had been averted by an unexpected miracle, but he still felt like a stranger in his own home. The scene of his daughters calling Anna Mommy was a constant reminder of his own absence, of the gap he couldn't seem to fill. However, a new hope ignited in his heart. The possibility of having Anna around, of seeing his daughters happy and speaking, was more valuable than any profit or return he had ever earned in his business ventures. Over time, Anna's presence in the mansion became not just accepted, but essential. Elias, who once saw her as a discreet employee, began to see her with new eyes. He watched her with the girls, her patience, her affection, the way she listened and responded to every small request. Anna, in turn, slowly began to heal from the wounds caused by Elias's suspicion and the loss of her own child. The triplets filled the void in her heart, and the mansion, once a workplace, transformed into a home where she felt loved and needed. Elias decided to do the right thing. He offered Anna a new contract, not as a house cleaner, but as the girl's primary caregiver, with a generous salary and benefits that surpassed any job she had ever had. Anna accepted, on the condition that she would continue to care for the girls with the same love and dedication as before. The emotional ties between her and the girls strengthened with each passing day. She was the figure they sought, the voice they listened to, the hug that comforted them. Elias began to see her not just as the savior of his daughters, but as a woman of admirable strength and resilience. But there was still one last hurdle, an emotional knot that needed to be untied. Anna, despite all the love she received and gave, did not see herself as worthy of occupying such an important place in that family. The shame of the accusations, of past humiliations, still stung. The shadow of the house cleaner and the gold digger still hung over her, a burden she carried silently. And Elias, the man who always had quick solutions for his business, realized this solution wouldn't come from a contract or more money, but from a profound acknowledgement of Anna's worth, an acknowledgement he needed to express in a way she could truly accept and believe. How could he make her understand that she wasn't just a caregiver, but an essential part of his family? And how could he heal the wounds his own suspicion had inflicted? The answer to these questions was about to manifest on an unexpected stage, bringing forth a truth that would change the destiny of them all. Months passed, weaving a new tapestry in the life of the Vance mansion. Anna's presence had transformed the atmosphere in a way Elias could never have imagined. The heavy silence had given way to a joyful clamor, the nightly cries replaced by infectious laughter. The triplets, now nearly 3, were vibrant, exploratory children with a vocabulary that grew daily. They called Anna Mommy, a word Elias still heard with a complex mix of joy and a silent ache in his own heart. He strived to be a present father, to make up for lost time, but he felt there was an invisible barrier between him and the depth of the connection his daughters had with Anna. Anna had adapted to her new role with commendable dedication. From house cleaner, she had become a caregiver, then the girl's educator under Elias's supervision, who invested heavily in her training. He saw in Anna not just the woman who had saved his daughters, but a person with an emotional intelligence and a capacity for love that surpassed any financial metric he was used to. His portfolio, once measured in stocks and crypto, now expanded with intangible values. However, the shadow of insecurity still loomed over Anna. She was loved by the girls, respected by Elias, but the accusations of being an opportunist and the past humiliations still echoed in her mind. She still saw herself as the house cleaner, an intruder in this world of wealth and prestige. The housekeeper, Mrs. Gable, maintained a respectful distance. The scene of the girls crying out for Anna had been a turning point even for her. Though a remnant of wounded pride remained, the triplets' happiness was undeniable, and even Mrs. Gable couldn't ignore it. Elias's reconciliation with Eleanor also softened the atmosphere. The maternal grandmother visited her granddaughters regularly, and with each visit, her admiration for Anna grew. She saw the girls' evolution, the way they flourished, and understood that true love does not choose social status. Elias and Anna began to develop an unusual partnership. They discussed the girls' education, the challenges of daily life, each one's small progressions. Elias, the businessman, the billionaire accustomed to handling massive contracts and the complex world of finance, began to value Anna's opinions on matters he once considered trivial. In one of these conversations, Anna mentioned her dream of one day opening a small early learning center, a place where children could be loved and cared for. Elias, seeing the passion in her eyes, offered to help with the initial investment, but Anna gently refused. "I don't want to mix things, Mr. Vance. My job here is already a blessing." Despite their growing closeness and mutual respect, one subject remained untouched between them: their relationship. Elias felt more than gratitude, a feeling he couldn't name, a warmth that filled his chest whenever he saw Anna smile at the girls. Anna, for her part, admired Elias's transformation, the way he strove to be a better father. But the memories of her own loss and the social chasm between them were walls she feared she could never cross. She believed her place was to care for his daughters, not to take Sophia's place. The unexpected turning point came with the preparation for a small school performance for the triplets. It would be a simple recital with other children their age at the local school, an event that, for Elias, was a milestone in his daughter's recovery. He was proud and anxious. The girls were rehearsing a children's song, and Anna helped them with patience and care, encouraging each of them to let her voice be heard. Elias watched the rehearsals from a distance, with a mix of emotion and a sense of exclusion, as the triplets rarely asked for his opinion or included him. He heard them call Anna the mommy in our hearts in their little dialogues. On the day of the performance, the school auditorium was packed with parents and grandparents. Elias sat in the front row, with Eleanor beside him, his heart racing. The lights dimmed, and the children entered the stage, dressed in colorful outfits. The triplets were there, holding hands, their little eyes shining. The music began, a simple song about love and family. The children sang in chorus, and when it was the triplets' turn, they took a step forward. Elias felt a lump in his throat, hoping for a daddy he so longed to hear from them. But what came next took him by surprise, a bolt of emotion that struck him to the core. The triplets, with clear voices full of pure love, sang a verse different from the other children's. Their small faces turned to Anna, who was sitting in the audience a few rows behind Elias, and in unison, with all the affection and emotion they could express, they dedicated their first recital to the mommy in our hearts. They didn't shout, they sang. And in the melody of their voices, there was a truth that transcended all barriers. Elias, his eyes welling up, looked at Anna, who was in tears, a smile blooming on her lips. In that moment, he knew. He knew what he had to do, and he would do it in a way she would never forget. But how would he, the man of numbers, of stocks and the market, express the love he felt? And could Anna overcome her insecurity and accept a place she never imagined was hers? The fate of that family was about to be rewritten, not with contracts or fortunes, but with a simple request, filled with all the love of a father and his daughters. The sweet melody of the triplets' song echoed in Elias's ears long after the applause from the small audience had faded. The dedication to the mommy in our hearts was an emotional bombshell, a catalyst for the revelation he needed. In that moment, all his certainties were redefined. It wasn't about his fortune, his portfolio, or the prestige of his name. It was about love, about the purest and most unbreakable connection. He looked at Anna, who was trying to hide her emotional tears, and he saw not just the woman who had saved his daughters, but the woman who, unintentionally, had saved him too. This was the definitive turning point. He stood up, walking toward Anna, his eyes fixed on her, ignoring the curious glances of other parents and the proud expressions of Eleanor, who was applauding enthusiastically. The triplets, still on stage, watched the scene with childlike curiosity, sensing the intensity of the moment without fully understanding it. Elias extended his hand to Anna, who took it, surprised. He gently led her out of the row into a more private space in the school hallway. The buzz around them seemed distant, muffled by the rapid beat of his own heart. "Anna," Elias began, his voice slightly choked. I saw, I heard." He paused, searching for the right words, the kind his business world rarely required. "You are their mother, the mommy in their hearts," as they said. Anna's eyes widened, a mix of hope and disbelief. I don't know what to say, Mr. Vance." "Say yes," Elias replied, with a firmness that surprised them both. He pulled a small, crumpled piece of paper from his jacket pocket, handwritten. It wasn't a diamond ring. It wasn't an investment contract. It wasn't a jewel his vast capital could easily acquire. It was something far more valuable. The letters were crooked and childish, but the words were clear and powerful. "The girls wrote this, with my help, of course," he said, handing the paper to her. Anna unfolded the paper, and the words, written in colored pencil, filled her eyes with fresh tears. "Can we call you Mommy forever?" Anna felt her heart burst in her chest. The insecurity, the shame of past accusations, the social divide, all of it seemed to vanish before the purity of that request. It wasn't just Elias, it was the girls. They were the ones who wanted her, who recognized her as their mother. She looked at Elias, and for the first time, she saw not the tech mogul, the man of untouchable fortune, but a vulnerable man with misty eyes, offering his heart and his daughter's hearts to her. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible but filled with all the emotion she felt. "Yes, of course, yes." Elias broke into a smile, a genuine, radiant smile he hadn't shown in a long time. He hugged her, a hug that wasn't between a boss and an employee, but between two hearts finding each other. That hug was the most valuable of all his assets. The triplets, who had left the stage and drawn near, watched the scene, and Chloe, the most observant, ran to them, hugging Anna's legs. Aurora and Sky followed, forming a circle of love. The news of the proposal spread through the mansion like a breath of fresh air. Mrs. Gable, the housekeeper, initially skeptical, couldn't help but feel a lump in her throat. She had witnessed Anna's transformation and the girls' happiness. And now she saw Elias, the man she had served for so many years, find happiness in such an unexpected way. She felt ashamed of her past intrigues, for having planted doubt in Elias's mind, and decided it was time to redeem her mistakes. Eleanor, the maternal grandmother, was deeply moved. She visited Anna the next day, bringing with her an old family locket, a gift from her own mother that she had saved for her daughter, Sophia. "This was your mother's, Anna," Eleanor said, handing her the small object. "I want you to have it. It's a symbol of a new beginning, of a new family bond." The two women, once separated by prejudice and distrust, were now united by a common love. The triplets, the grandmother, who had criticized Elias's choices and his management of assets, now saw that life's true treasure wasn't measured in gold or crypto, but in love and human connection. Over time, Anna was officially hired as the girls' educator, and later, as the maternal figure they so craved. The emotional bonds between her and Elias deepened. Conversations about the future, about their dreams and fears, filled the nights at the mansion. Elias shared details of his businesses, his companies, his new investments, but he did so differently, seeking her opinion, valuing her perspective. Anna, in turn, shared memories of her childhood, her challenges, her hopes. However, a remnant of uncertainty still lingered in Anna. The shame of the accusations, the humiliations, still hurt. She had accepted Elias's proposal, but the idea of taking Sophia's place, of being Mrs. Vance, seemed like too heavy a burden. The status of a billionaire's wife, with all the wealth and responsibility that came with it, still intimidated her. She questioned if she truly deserved it all. Elias noticed this hesitation, this subtle barrier she still erected. He knew that love and acceptance had to be more than just a proposal. They had to be a daily construction, a constant reinforcement of her value and her place in that family, and he was determined to do it every day, with every gesture, proving that their love was the greatest of all assets, the most profitable of investments. But how could he completely dispel Anna's last doubts and make her feel fully she belonged in this new life? The answer would come from where he least expected it, from his own daughters, who, with the innocence and purity of their hearts, would show Anna that her place was beside them, forever. The mansion, once a sanctuary of silence and loneliness for Elias, had transformed into a bustling home, filled with laughter and children's voices. Anna, with her affection and dedication, was the center of this new atmosphere. The triplets, now with firm and confident voices, were the living testament to the love Anna had brought. Elias and Anna had committed to marrying, but the ceremony had not yet been set. There was a kind of sweet limbo, a transitional period where feelings deepened and bonds strengthened, but the formalities still awaited. Elias devoted himself to Anna with a passion he never thought himself capable of. It wasn't just flowers or expensive jewelry, which his vast capital and profits allowed. He gifted her with time, with attention, with the listening ear she valued so much. He shared details of his businesses with her, not to impress her with his fortune or his skill in investments and applications, but to include her in his world, to show that she was an integral part of it all. Anna, in turn, blossomed under this love and respect. Her insecurity diminished daily, but the scar of past accusations still stubbornly bothered her. The idea of being Mrs. Vance, with all the weight of the name and the wealth it represented, still frightened her. She didn't see herself as a woman of fortune, but as someone who had lost much and found a new purpose. Eleanor, now a staunch ally, was a constant and welcoming presence. She and Anna spent hours talking, sharing stories about Sophia, about motherhood, about life's challenges. Eleanor spoke of the family's old treasures, not in terms of monetary value or net worth, but in terms of legacy, of love. This connection with the girls, grandmother, helped Anna feel more integrated, more like she belonged. Mrs. Gable, the housekeeper, also changed her behavior. Far from her intrigues, she began to show genuine respect for Anna, and even a discreet affection for the girls. The entire house had found a new harmony. However, the emotional challenges never ceased completely. Elias noticed that, despite all the love and affection, Anna still had moments of melancholy, of doubt. The shame of the accusations, the feeling of being an imposter in a world so different from her own, still haunted her. She felt grateful, immensely grateful, but didn't see herself as worthy of occupying such an important place in this family of multimillionaires. Her own past, her loss, her humble origins seemed to weigh on her shoulders, creating an emotional liability she was still struggling to overcome. Elias was determined to change that. He wanted Anna to feel whole, complete, loved, and valued in her entirety. But how do you convince someone to believe in their own worth when doubt has taken such deep root? He thought of all the quick solutions he applied in his business, how he solved complex problems of profitability and cash flow. But this was a matter of the heart, something no analysis of stocks or Bitcoin could resolve. It was then that the idea of the recital came to him. Not a grand event, but a small performance the triplets would give for the family, at home, in the living room, an intimate yet significant moment. Elias suggested to Anna that the girls choose the music and the theme. He wanted it to be their own, something that came from their little hearts. Anna, with the girls' help, chose a simple melody, but with lyrics that spoke of gratitude and love. The girls rehearsed with enthusiasm, their small arms moving in expressive gestures, their clear voices filling the house. Elias watched them, his heart overflowing with pride and hope. On the day of the performance, the living room was simply but cozily decorated. Eleanor was there, as was Mrs. Gable and a few other staff members who had become part of the family. Elias sat beside Anna, holding her hand, feeling her slight tension. The lights dimmed, and with a small spotlight directed at them, the triplets entered, dressed in little white dresses. They stepped onto a small, improvised stage, their faces lit by smiles. The music began, and the girls' voices, in unison, filled the room. They sang about love, about family, about joy, and then, at the song's climax, they made an unexpected gesture. They turned to Anna, extended their arms, and with a look full of love, sang the words that would finally melt Anna's heart. To our mommy of the heart, who taught us to speak and to love. You are our family, you are our home. The words resonated in the room, touching the souls of everyone present. Anna felt the tears stream down her face, but this time they were tears of pure joy and acceptance. This was the acknowledgement she so desperately needed, coming from the purest and most sincere voices. The shame, the doubt, the insecurity, it all seemed to evaporate. She belonged. She was their mother, their home. Elias moved, squeezed her hand. He knew this was the moment. He didn't need more time, more proof. And the decision he would make next would seal his family's destiny once and for all, filling the last remaining void. But how would he make this proposal? And would Anna, with her heart now open, accept the place that life and love were calling her to occupy? Not as a replacement, but as the mother of the heart who had healed them all. The answer was about to be given, with a simple gesture, yet one laden with eternal meaning. The triplets' words, sung with a purity that could pierce the most hardened of hearts, echoed in Anna's mind. To our mommy of the heart, who taught us to speak and to love, you are our family, you are our home. Those phrases, from voices so small and precious, were the balm her wounded soul had been searching for. Tears flowed freely down her face, no longer of sadness or insecurity, but of overwhelming joy, of a sense of belonging she had never dared to dream of. The knot in her chest unraveled. The shame of the accusations, the humiliations, it all seemed insignificant in the face of that unconditional love. Elias moved, squeezed Anna's hand. He saw the transformation in her eyes, the dissolution of the final barriers. This was the moment. He knew that timing was everything. In business and in life, there was no need to wait any longer. He stood up, pulling Anna with him, and brought her near the small stage, where the triplets, with their radiant smiles, were still watching him. The living room, once a setting for silence and despair, now radiated love and happiness. He didn't need a ring with a diamond that represented his fortune or his vast portfolio. He didn't need the eloquent words he used in his lectures to investors about the stock market or the future of Bitcoin. What he needed was something authentic, something that spoke directly to Anna's heart, and that would be a testament to the love he and his daughters felt. With a smile that lit up his entire face, Elias knelt right there on the Persian rug in the living room, before Anna, his daughters, and all the staff who had become family. "Anna," he began, his voice choked but firm, "I asked you to marry me once with the girl's words. Today, I'm asking you again with my own heart." He looked at the triplets, who watched him with curiosity. "My daughters call you Mommy. I want to call you my wife." Anna felt a shiver run down her spine. The gesture, so simple and so profound, was worth more than any amount of money or wealth. It was the public acknowledgement, the validation of her place in this family. The triplets, understanding the gravity of the moment but not the full extent of what was happening, ran to them and hugged their legs. "Say yes, Mommy," Aurora shouted in her childish excitement. "Daddy loves you," Brisa added with her quick wit. And Chloe, the most observant, just smiled, her eyes shining. Anna smiled through her tears. "Yes, Elias," she said, her voice overflowing with happiness. "Yes, I accept." He stood up and kissed her, a soft kiss. full of promises and a future that seemed, finally, complete. The living room erupted in applause. Eleanor, her eyes misty, was the first to embrace them, her rigidity replaced by a genuine joy. "My daughter would have been so happy," she whispered to Elias, and he knew she was talking about Sophia. Mrs. Gable, the housekeeper, also approached, a rare smile on her lips. "Congratulations, Anna. Congratulations, Mr. Vance. This house needed you." The news of the marriage of Elias Vance, the tech billionaire, to Anna, the former house cleaner, surprised many in Elias's social circle. But for those who knew them well, it was the most natural and beautiful of stories. The intimate ceremony took place a few weeks later, at the mansion itself. There was no ostentation, only the simplicity and depth of their love. All the employees were present, witnessing the love that had transformed that home. Eleanor, in a gesture that sealed the reconciliation and Anna's full acceptance into the family, brought the wedding rings, a symbol of the new bond being formed. Anna wore a simple but elegant dress, and her eyes radiated a light that rivaled any jewel. Elias, by her side, looked happier and lighter than ever. During their vows, he spoke of the importance of love, of patience, of discovering that the greatest wealth was not in his businesses or his portfolio, but in human connection. Anna, in turn, spoke of healing, of family, of finding a home where she least expected it. And so, in that mansion once marked by silence and pain, the most present sound became the laughter of three little girls whom everyone had once thought were mute. They weren't mute, they were just waiting for someone to listen with their heart. And that someone was Anna, the woman who, with her love and serenity, had unraveled the mystery and filled the void for them all. Elias, the man of quick solutions, had finally found the most lasting and valuable solution of all. But what did the future hold for this unique family? And how would the triplets, now with a mother of the heart, develop in a world of so much love, and yet so much contrast between their origins and their new home? The Vance family's journey was just beginning, and challenges and joys still awaited them, on a path that would prove that love was indeed the greatest investment of all. Life in the Vance mansion after Elias and Anna's wedding blossomed into a symphony of laughter and discovery. The triplets, now with an official mommy of the heart, grew up in an environment of love and security that had been denied them for so long. Anna, who once felt like an intruder, now moved through the house with the natural ease of someone who belongs. Her steps were confident, her smiles more frequent, and the melancholy that sometimes accompanied her had significantly faded. She devoted herself to the girls with inexhaustible energy, guiding them through their first explorations of the world, answering their curiosities with patience and affection. Elias, for his part, had found a peace that his vast investments and business successes could never provide. His life, once so focused on profits and dividends, now had a new center, his family. He still dedicated time to his tech empire, but the urgency and anxiety of before had dissipated. He learned from Anna to value the small moments, the beauty of everyday life, the wealth that isn't measured in dollars or euros. Their conversations extended beyond the girls, encompassing dreams and future projects. She encouraged him to connect more with his own humanity, to see the world through a different lens than cash flow and profitability. Still, the transformation was not without its small hurdles. Elias's social circle, accustomed to his status as a reclusive, single billionaire, was slow to accept Anna as the new Mrs. Vance. Murmurs initially arose about her humble origins and the speed with which the relationship had evolved. Elias, however, faced this criticism with the same firmness he used to negotiate major contracts on the stock market. He introduced Anna with pride, highlighting her strength, her emotional intelligence, and above all, the love she had brought into his and his daughter's lives. His confidence in Anna was unshakable, and he allowed no malicious comment to tarnish the happiness they had built. Anna, despite Elias's unconditional support, still felt the weight of some expectations. The pressure of being a multi-millionaire's wife, of having to fit into a world of social events and appearances, sometimes overwhelmed her. She remembered the accusations of self-interest and, even though she knew they weren't true, a small voice in her mind still whispered doubts. Elias noticed these moments of hesitation and strove to reassure her, to show her that her greatest asset was her heart, not her surname or her net worth. "Anna," he would say, holding her hands, "you are the most precious jewel I have. Your value isn't in material things, but in who you are." Eleanor continued to be a pillar of support. She became a second grandmother to Anna, sharing wisdom and experiences. She taught Anna about family traditions, not imposingly, but with affection, helping her feel increasingly rooted in this new home. Mrs. Gable, the housekeeper, also played an important role. At first, there was a certain distance, but over time, she and Anna developed a mutual respect. Mrs. Gable, who had cared for the house for decades, now saw in Anna the continuation of the story, the guardian of a new legacy. The triplets were the strongest bond of all. Their relationship with Anna was a perfect symbiosis of love and learning. They made no distinction between the mother who gave birth to them and the mother who taught them to speak and to love. To them, Anna was simply mommy. They included her in all their games, their secrets, their mischief. It was a pure, non-judgmental love that healed Anna's last wounds and helped her embrace her new role completely. The family, now complete, went through moments of deep reflection. Elias, in particular, reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The loss of Sophia, the silence of his daughters, the arrival of Anna, overcoming his own suspicions. It was all a great learning experience. He had been a man of quick solutions for the business world, but life had taught him that the most important solutions were built with patience, with empathy, with the heart. His most valuable assets weren't his businesses or his financial investments, but the love of his family. One day, while watching Anna and the girls in the garden, Elias felt a spark of inspiration. He saw Anna telling stories to the triplets, her eyes shining as they listened intently. He remembered her dream of having a small daycare. The idea, for which Anna had previously refused financial help so as not to mix things, now seemed like a project of love that would unite them even more. Elias decided it was time for a surprise, to show Anna, once and for all, that she was more than worthy of all her dreams. He wanted to build something with her, something that would be a reflection of the love that united them, and that would also be a legacy for the triplets. But how would he present this idea to Anna in a way that would make her feel honored and not just once again intimidated by his wealth? Elias's next step would be an act of love and recognition that would solidify Anna's place not just as his wife, but as a partner in every sense of the word, and that would forever change Anna's perception of her own worth. The climax of their journey of overcoming was near, and what he was about to reveal would be the final proof of his love and of Anna's total acceptance into his life. Elias spent weeks planning the surprise. He wanted it to be something meaningful for Anna, something that would validate her dreams and demonstrate, unquestionably, how much he valued her not just as a wife and mother to his daughters, but as a woman with her own talents and aspirations. He knew Anna still struggled with the idea of being a beneficiary of his fortune and vast portfolio, and he wanted this project to be a testament to his belief in her potential. He didn't just want to offer money, he wanted to offer a partnership, a legacy built with 4 hands, or rather 6, including the little ones. Anna's idea of having a daycare had never left Elias's mind. He saw the sparkle in her eyes when she talked about it, the passion that moved her. With the help of one of his most loyal and discreet employees, he began researching properties, developing blueprints and planning every detail. The project, which he named the Garden of Voices, would be a magical space filled with colors, educational toys, and dedicated professionals, a place where children like his triplets could flourish. He used his capital and his investment experience to ensure the daycare would be a model of excellence. But the soul of the project would belong to Anna. He waited for the perfect moment for the reveal. A sunny weekend, with the triplets playing in the garden, he asked Anna to join him for a short car ride, without giving many details. Anna, curious but trusting, agreed. The drive was short, and the car stopped in front of a large, walled property with a big wooden gate. Anna looked at Elias, puzzled. "What is this, Elias?" she asked, her eyes searching for an explanation. Elias smiled, a smile she recognized as that of a proud and enamored man. He led her through the gate, revealing a vast green space with some foundations already marked on the ground and a small, detailed model of a modern and welcoming building. In the center of the property, there was a sign covered by a white cloth. "It's for you, Anna," he said, his voice soft but full of meaning. "It's our gift to you." And to the girls, Anna felt her heart race. She approached the model, her eyes tracing every detail. It was a daycare center, the daycare of her dreams, but much larger, more beautiful, and more complete than she had ever imagined. Elias removed the cloth from the sign, revealing the name, the Garden of Voices. And below, in small letters, an inscription, "In honor of Dr. Sophia Vance, and all the mothers who teach from the heart." Tears streamed down Anna's face. It was more than a daycare. It was an acknowledgement, a validation of her worth, a tribute to Sophia's memory, and a symbol of the love that Elias and the girls felt for her. It was the final proof that she was not a substitute, but an essential part of that legacy. "Elias," she whispered, unable to find other words. "It's yours, Anna," he said, holding her hands. "Your dream. Your project. I just helped make it a reality. You will manage it. You will give it its soul. And it will be a place where our daughters can grow and where many other children will have the chance to find their voice, just like ours did." He had thought of every detail, of every investment he had made from his assets and funds to realize this dream. But now he saw that the true profit was Anna's happiness. At that moment, the triplets, who had been brought by Mrs. Gable to join them, ran to Anna, hugging her legs. "It's beautiful, Mommy," said Aurora, pointing at the model. "It's for kids to talk," exclaimed Sky. And Chloe, with her usual perceptiveness, added, "Like we talked to you." Anna knelt, hugging the three girls tightly, her heart overflowing with gratitude and love. "Yes, my loves. It's for all children to find their voices." She looked at Elias, her eyes filled with a light he had never seen before. This was the moment of greatest emotional tension, the resolution of the last knot that still bound her. She finally saw herself as worthy, not because of her wealth or her social position, but because of who she was and the love she could give. The daycare would become a reflection of Anna's love, a place of healing and learning, a monument to resilience and the human capacity to love. For Elias, it was the consolidation of his greatest investment, the happiness of his family. For the triplets, it was the living proof of the power of love. And for Anna, it was the culmination of her journey, the full acceptance of her place in that home, in that world. That moment, with the model before her and her daughters and Elias by her side, was the most beautiful conclusion to a journey of suffering and overcoming. But what did the future hold for the Vance family, now with a new purpose and a legacy of love to build? And how would the Garden of Voices impact the community and the lives of other children, transforming them as the triplets were transformed? The final chapter of this love story was about to be written, with the promise of a satisfying and inspiring outcome. The unveiling of the Garden of Voices was the catalyst for resolving all the conflicts that still hovered, subtle and intangible, over Anna and Elias's life. Anna, seeing her dream materialized with such care and dedication, felt the last barriers of her insecurity crumble. The shame of the accusations, the feeling of not being worthy, all of it dissipated into the air, replaced by a deep sense of gratitude and belonging. Elias wasn't just offering a fortune or an asset, he was offering a partnership, a legacy that validated her essence and her love. This was the greatest demonstration of love he could have given. The construction of the Garden of Voices became a family project. The triplets, curious and full of energy, frequently visited the construction site, tracking the progress and imagining the games they would play there. Anna devoted herself body and soul to the pedagogical planning, the selection of the team, and the creation of a welcoming and stimulating environment. Elias, in turn, applied his business expertise, ensuring the project had a solid and sustainable structure. An investment in education and well-being that surpassed any profit he could gain on the stock market or from his stocks. He wanted the daycare to be a beacon of hope, a place that offered more than just care, but the opportunity to find a voice, to flourish. Eleanor, the maternal grandmother, became one of the project's biggest supporters. She mobilized her network of contacts, raised additional funds, and offered her management experience to assist Anna. The relationship between Anna and Eleanor blossomed into a deep friendship and mutual respect. The grandmother, who once saw the world in black and white, now saw the nuances of love, the beauty of connections that transcended status and wealth. She felt part of something bigger, a legacy of compassion and altruism that her daughter, Sophia, would have approved of. Mrs. Gable, the housekeeper, also found her redemption. In a candid conversation with Anna, she apologized for her suspicions and for planting doubts in Elias's mind. "I was a fool, Anna," Mrs. Gable said, her eyes misty. "I only saw what my prejudices allowed me to see. You are the best thing that has happened to this family." Anna embraced her, showing there were no hard feelings. The mansion, once a place of hierarchy and distance, was now a home where everyone felt valued and connected. The narrative arcs of each character closed in a tapestry of overcoming and reconciliation. Elias, the man of quick solutions, had learned to slow down, to listen to his heart, to value love above all the capital and portfolio he had built. He became a more present father, a loving husband, and a thoughtful partner who saw in Anna not just his wife, but his soulmate. Anna, the young woman with a wounded heart and a past of loss, found healing in an unexpected love, in a family that welcomed and valued her in her entirety. She became a confident woman with a clear purpose, ready to build a future full of love and meaning. The triplets, the pulsating heart of the family, grew up in an environment of joy and learning. Their voices, once silent, were now the soundtrack of the mansion and the Garden of Voices. They were living proof that love can heal, that human connection is the most powerful of forces. Their early years, marked by silence, were replaced by a vibrant childhood, full of discoveries and unconditional love. The opening ceremony of the Garden of Voices was a day of celebration and emotion. The community gathered to witness the realization of a dream. Anna, alongside Elias and the triplets, gave a speech with a voice she once dared not have, speaking about the importance of inclusion, love, and opportunity for all children. Elias, watching her, felt a pride that surpassed any business success. He had built a tech empire, but the daycare, the Garden of Voices, was his most valuable legacy, his greatest life investment. With the opening of the daycare, the Vance family's life gained a new rhythm, a new purpose. Elias and Anna continued to build their life together, with the challenges and joys that marriage and parenthood bring. The triplets grew, each developing her own personality. but always united by the unbreakable bond that tied them to Anna. The story of the Vance family, which began with silence and pain, was now a testament to the transformative power of love, human resilience, and the ability to find happiness in the most unexpected places. Overcoming, altruism, and human connection had prevailed over pain and fear, building a bright and hopeful future. What else did this inspiring family have to offer the world? And how would the message of the Garden of Voices spread, touching other lives and transforming the future of many more children? The epilogue of this journey was about to be revealed, with the promise of a lasting impact and a positive message that would echo for generations. The Garden of Voices became more than a daycare. It transformed into a beacon of hope in the community, a model of inclusion and affection that attracted families from all walks of life. Anna, as the project's director, dedicated herself with a tireless passion, overseeing every detail, every child's smile. Her leadership was inspiring, her compassion contagious. She implemented innovative methods for speech and emotional development stimulation, based on her own experience with the triplets. Many children who, like Aurora, Sky, and Chloe, had communication difficulties, found a welcoming environment there to blossom. Elias, watching the sparkle in Anna's eyes as she worked, felt a pride that surpassed any return on investment his crypto or stock companies could offer. The Garden of Voices was not just an asset, it was a legacy of love. The Vance mansion, now with the constant coming and going of the triplets from the daycare, remained a center of life and joy. The girls, growing up with the security of a loving home, were the picture of happiness. Their voices, once a miracle, were now the most beautiful of routines. They talked about their friends from the daycare, the stories Anna told, the small challenges and big achievements of daily life. Elias actively participated in their education, reading to them every night, teaching them about the world and, curiously, even about basic financial literacy, like the importance of saving and the value of work, adapted to their childish understanding. He wanted them to understand that wealth wasn't just having money, but having solid values. Anna and Elias's relationship deepened into a complete life partnership. They discussed everything, from the challenges of the Garden of Voices to plans for the future. Anna, with her sensitivity, helped Elias see the nuances of life beyond numbers and assets. He, in turn, offered her the security and support for her dreams to fly even higher. Together, they were a force, a perfect balance between pragmatism and emotion. Elias began to diversify his investments, directing part of his capital to social and educational causes inspired by Anna's work. He saw profit not just in terms of income or dividends, but in the positive impact his portfolio could have on the world. Eleanor remained a present and beloved figure, a grandmother to Anna and a pillar of wisdom for the family. She was enchanted by her granddaughter's vitality and by the transformation of Elias and Anna. Her eyes, once so critical, now saw only the beauty of the family that had rebuilt itself. Mrs. Gable, the housekeeper, stayed in her role as the faithful guardian of the house, but with an even greater affection and respect for Anna. The family atmosphere was one of genuine cooperation, where everyone contributed their best. One quiet day, while watching the triplets play in the mansion's garden, Elias and Anna reflected on the journey that had brought them there. Elias, holding Anna's hand, smiled. Who would have thought that the man of quick solutions would find the most important solution of all in a hearty Anna, he said, his voice full of emotion. My greatest investment wasn't in companies or in gold, but in you and the love you brought into our lives. Anna, nestling into his shoulder, replied, And I, Elia, who thought I had lost everything, found a family, a purpose, and a love I never imagined possible. You taught me that true value isn't in what you have, but in what you give. The triplets, now 6 years old, approached, each with a drawing made at the daycare. Aurora showed a colorful drawing of a house, Sky, one of flowers and trees, and Chloe, one of a united family with big and small stick figures holding hands. "Mommy, Daddy, look what we made!" they exclaimed in chorus, their eyes shining. Elias and Anna hugged their daughters, their hearts overflowing with an indescribable joy. In that mansion, once a place of silence and pain, the most present sound became the laughter of three little girls, whom everyone had once thought were mute. They weren't mute, they were just waiting for someone to listen with their heart. And Anna, the woman who entered their lives as a discreet house cleaner, not only listened to them, but gave them their voice, their speech, the ability to love and to dream. Her story was a testament that life's greatest wealth is not measured in money or fortune, but in the transformative power of love, resilience, and human connection. The legacy of the Garden of Voices and the Vance family was an inspiring reminder that with an open heart and a soul willing to give, it is possible to build a future where love always flourishes. Overcoming any obstacle.